And we're live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. A vlogcast that comes from a skeptical point of view to answer some of the questions of why. This vlogcast started as a combination of spite and the Streisand effect because people on Facebook really need to be told, take a class in how to argument, please. Part of this is to follow through with the old adage, sometimes the journey is more important than the destination. I'm your main host. I'm known as Shujin pretty much all over the place. You can find me pretty much all over the web under that name, Shujin. Let me go ahead and introduce you to tonight's panel. That would be me. There's a little thing that's kind of going on at the moment. So let me give you guys a real quick heads up as to what's going on at the moment. Heretic Woman is going to be otherwise asleep because she's got something that's going on tomorrow. Dalan is at a party, which I forgot. I'm sorry, Dalan. If you got the little message from your thing that went yeah, sorry about that. It's muscle memory. I don't know where Joseph is. Joey, I also am not sure. Unredo Tech has had some stuff that's taken him out of commission for tonight, and I don't know where. I don't know where Brigid is at the moment. I haven't heard anything. So at the moment, it's just me, surprisingly enough. So you guys get this rare opportunity to find out just what happens when I'm running a little bit behind schedule, and I got nobody to support me. So this is going to be exciting because I did put the word out over in the atheist and skeptical podcasters, and basically let everybody know. Look. I got nobody, so if you want to join me, feel free. And my phone, I did not shut it up. There we go. That's better. So we'll see how this plays out. Yeah. So this is gonna be a weird night at the moment. So if you're watching live, and I really hope that you are, because this is gonna be freaking amazing. Please, by all means, take advantage of the live chat system. I know full well that Tripp and Stephanie are there. Hi, guys. I appreciate it. I am getting some... oh, cool. Tucker is going to be joining in a couple of minutes. So this is going to work out to be interesting. So I got stuff to talk about, of course, as always. Some is going to be better than others. Whose beeping was that? Was that my phone again? I thought I told you to shut up. That's better. God, love it when stuff like that happens. Anyway, so let me go ahead and warn you that I literally just got home 5 minutes ago from a trip to Toronto. I was running a little bit behind schedule, so such is. Oh, well, look at that.
Hey.
Hey, folks from the Midwest of the U.S. Hi, Brigid, you made it.
I made it. I'm so sorry. How's it going?
Well, considering I just got everything started and I didn't even bother turning on camera control, I'm doing good. I put the word out. I was just saying, I put the word out as a desperate help me over in the Facebook Skeptical Podpasters group, because it's just like, I'm starting a show right now and I got nobody in my show. If you want to join me, please do. So we're gonna have Tucker joining us apparently in just a couple of moments. So.
Awesome.
So that's gonna be good. How you doing?
I'm okay. I'm good.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I was just saying that I literally got back 10 minutes ago. Sorry, almost 10 minutes ago from Canada. So I've still got stuff in the car that I didn't take out because yeah, running a little bit behind schedule.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna roll the 5-minute freestyle. You may want to get yourself a drink, a little something if you don't already have water, anything, because we need to give off a toast when before we get started with everything.
Okay.
So you do that. So let me go ahead and get my part started over here. So with 5 minutes on the clock, your 5-minute freestyle is right now, labeled goodbye. Goodbye, Felicia. I don't know how many of you caught about that one, but yeah, there's somebody who was on actual broadcast news who went ahead and used that derisively and correctly for I believe it might have been Roy Moore, could have been, and you know, I would really like to believe that that was possible at this point. But this guy is like legal herpes. Seriously, every time you think you've gotten rid of him, he comes back. I mean, it happened once. He was kicked off the bench from the Supreme Court in Alabama because, well, he's a theocrat and he was ruling as a theocrat would. And they brought him back. They voted him back into office, and then he kind of did it again. And then they basically said, "Well, you can keep coming back to your office, but we're not going to pay you, and you have no legal authority. But we're not going to fire you. But you're fired." So it'd be really nice. It would be really nice to believe that this son of a bitch is simply not going to come back. But of course, somehow I get worried that he's going to try again and again and again until his little heart gives out. Bless his little soul. You know what? Just go away. Seriously, you got kicked out twice. You had to put your state through who only knows how much money in legal ramifications, and you don't see anything particularly wrong with that. The fact that there are credible people, credible accountings that are against you, and you don't give that a moment's notice. You know what? Don't even worry about it. Just goodbye. Now, if only we could do that with a lot of other people. It'd be so much easier. One news story came up. The son of a bitch, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say it. The son of a bitch who drove his car through a protester and killed them and then sped off has been arraigned on first-degree murder count, plus a whole bunch of other counts. And vehicular homicide, I believe, was one of them at one point. But they finally just said, yeah, you know what? We've got this charge and 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 this charge. You know what? Yeah, I think we can make murder one stick. So as far as I'm concerned, this guy, goodbye. Just go away. Now, that's two particular individuals. But I'm going to call out an entire class of people that I would really like to just go away. And no, it's not the people who have been credibly accused of molesting people, women in particular. I mean, yeah, we've got the people who've been credibly, accused, not the least of which would be the president of my goddamned country. But I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye to an entirely different class of people. All of you, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop the one F-bomb for tonight. All of you sad, sorry, dumbass motherfuckers down there in Alabama. You white, elitist fucking snobs. Yeah, two. Who went ahead and said, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to vote for a Republican, no matter how slimy he could be, over a goddamn Democrat. You put your group above the greater good? What the absolute hell is wrong with you people? Do you have no morals whatsoever? Do you have no idea what in the hell kind of statement you made? But you know what? That's okay. Because the descendants, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren, the great-great-grandchildren of the people that your grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents pushed under their heel They went ahead and they spoke up for you in your place because they did exactly what they should have done. They put you in your place. Goodbye. It's episode 192 on the docket, Your Honor. The times, they are a-changin'. And fortunately, I don't have to be quite this angry anymore for the particular piece that we're going to be talking about, because my United States is changing, and it's changing in a very nice way. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and what we're going to be expecting to see. Joining us at the moment, however, all in the middle of the whole thing, and hearing me in a very unflattering way, finally for the first time, Tucker, hi, how the hell are you? Thank you.
Hi. It's not the first time I was here for your New Year's Eve or Christmas show.
Details. Doesn't matter. I don't remember any of this shit. Whatever. Anyway, it's good to have you back, though. Seriously, I'm very glad to have you back, man.
I'm glad to be here.
So, as I told Brigid a couple of moments ago, that before I got started on my my 5-minute rant, we need to. I don't know if you've got any kind of a drink with you of any kind, but we do need to have.
I don't know if you can see it. My video is not playing. I know the camera's on, but
no, you're doing good. That is some bush that you got over there. I see that. Yeah. And there's a reason, and this is kind of sideways to my freestyle, as is kind of become tradition for me. I went out and I got my little vial of Johnny Walker Black Label, because, as you know full well, I believe it was just Friday is another year since that we lost Christopher Hitchens.
Yeah, and
as somebody pointed out, we do not toast to him because he is not here. We toast his memory, and we toast his inspiration, because he is one of those people that said, basically, prove it. Oh, you're not proving it. Prove it. No, you're not proving it. Prove it. No, you're not proving it. Go away. He is the one who actually had the compunction to say, I don't believe that waterboarding is torture. You know what? Show me. Okay, you know what? It's torture. He got proved that he was wrong, and he changed his mind. So to you, Hitch, thank you for your inspiration, and thank you for not being afraid to come out and say, you're wrong. To you, Hitch. And by the way, I don't drink Johnny Walker, so this one's gonna hurt just a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know about Johnny Walker Black, but I know the red is not that great.
Yeah, my usual drink is wine. So, yeah, and considering I haven't had very much to eat most of the day, yeah, I'm probably gonna end up feeling this in a little while. Yeah, that was only one swig off of it, and truth be told, I don't think that I should really have any much more. Only because, like I said, I did not have very much to eat the last couple of hours, and I don't think that I should drink that whole thing on an empty stomach.
No.
If I'm not a whiskey drinker.
Probably not a good idea.
Yeah, we will see. And Trippin's just saying that he's already turning red. No, black. It's Johnny. See, read it. It's black. Johnny Walker Black. Come to think of it, if my face is turning black, that's probably a really bad moment right there. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, before we go ahead and get into the regular part of it all, like I said, Heretic Woman has got stuff that she's got to do tomorrow, so she's asleep. For those of you that may have missed it, last week we did have word that the upcoming prince has made word that there is the possibility, a good possibility, if not necessarily a strong one just yet, that Rafe Badawi could become pardoned. Now, we have no kind of timetable on this. We don't know very much beyond the fact that it's been floated out there by the prince himself. So we're still hopeful. We still have to kind of wait and see how this is going to play out. However, as that has not yet come up, as far as I've been able to find in the news, as of the recording of tonight's show, this is now 5 years, 5 months, 31 days since Raif Badawi was unjustly incarcerated for thought crime. Our thoughts and our hopes are still with you. And we're really, really hoping really hard for you to get out.
Well, not just out and alive, because it could be like that guy that North Koreans released who, was basically dead on arrival. He was perfectly fine and nothing happened to him, and yet he was somehow still dead.
Yeah, there's a couple of stories like that. Yeah, before we get into that, just to cover that, Brigid, had you heard about that one North Korean guy came through and they had to do like medical stuff on him, and he had all kinds of stuff in his gut because he was shot and they had to operate on him?
No, I missed that one.
Yeah, he had some serious parasites in his gut, and they had to he got shot a number of times as he was trying to make it over the border. So they medevaced his ass big time out of the way, and they said that they found some stuff that was
yeah, it's not something that a doctor would normally see unless they were working in the third world. Because the kind of parasites that he had are so they've essentially been wiped out in most places in the world in humans.
Yeah. So you might have professional curiosity, but for those people that are otherwise squeamish about this kind of thing, you can go look up the news articles about it, but I did not see any photos, and I think it's probably better that way, considering that I read through some of the article and I was even just, this is not cool, man. This is really, really not cool.
There was an article recently published where a concentration camp survivor commented after reading the conditions in the North Korean camps, saying North Korean camps are worse than the concentration camps in Nazi Germany. And let me tell you, I've read a number of books by people who were in the concentration camps. The most horrific one I've ever read is called The Auschwitz Volunteer by Witold Pilecki. He was a member of the Polish underground who went into Auschwitz shortly after it opened to try and figure out what was going on. He had, and he was able to smuggle out reports to the Allies, and they didn't believe his reports because they're so horrific. And the book is basically his reports, because after the Soviets took over Poland, he went back to Poland undercover and was found out and executed by the Polish government. So he never really get to give a full accounting. But what he did give an accounting of is just horrific. And the biggest tragedy in the book is that he had an underground element working with him, and that he got going in the camp, and they had access to the weapons. They had enough people they could take the camp over, but because they couldn't get permission from the Allies to do it, they didn't do it. And you read that and you just scream. It's like, dude, you should have fucking taken over the camp. Just, sure, the Germans would be coming in, but pop the gates open, let people run out. The Poles would have hidden them. And they did not do that. And that's a great tragedy.
Yeah, if memory serves, there was also somebody from England who did similar. He intentionally got himself captured in France so that he could find out what was going on. And when he finally smuggled out information, they didn't believe him either.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just...
and there was a in the Roosevelt administration, there was a guy who was a Nazi sympathizer who he was in charge of handling a lot of the reports. And so he would sanitize them rather than, just passing the information along. So Roosevelt never had the full picture.
But then again, truth be told, up to that point, what they were talking about was simply unconscionable and unthinkable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is a kind of thing where you'd have to see it to believe it, really, because it was so horrific.
So, yeah, so there's that. So let me go ahead and show you guys a picture that had made its way through on my Twitter feed earlier yesterday, I believe it was, which kind of prompted this whole thing. And it's a graph from Scientific American's Twitter feed. So I'll give you a show of what this is. So for those of you that are listening instead of watching, it's a graph that Scientific American had put out that shows religious affiliation by year of survey. And it's showing from, let's go with 1970 approximately, because the zero line doesn't have a number to it, but it starts at 1980 as the first number, and then 1990, 2000, 2010. Yes, I say 2010. I don't say 2010. Shut up. I don't care. And after that, of course, the graph is, well, nebulous at best because, well, it's extrapolated data. But they're measuring out the percentage of people who affiliate as Protestant, Catholic, none, or other, as far as religious affiliation here in the United States. And starting off in 1970, you could say that approximately 5% identify as either none or other, with 27%, give or take, as Catholic, and 60, let's call it 63% as Protestant. Now, I'm fudging my numbers a little bit just because I'm trying to gauge what it says on the screen. So if you run my numbers and they're wrong, I don't care. Blow me, whatever. But they took the data and they graphed it over time up through 1980, 1990, 2000, 2010. And the numbers start to have patterns that they've been able to take and kind of extrapolate out from to see where the trends are. The none affiliation going from 1970 at about give or take 5% doesn't look like it's really changed very much to 2010 and probably up through 2015. Okay. The Catholic numbers go from, let's say, 27% to 25-ish. The Protestant numbers go from approximately 62% down to approximately 49%, which is a big drop, of course. But the big standout is none, the atheist group. Now, it's labeled as none, which doesn't necessarily mean atheist. It could be people who claim to be agnostic or I don't have an affiliation, but the quote-unquote nuns, N-O-N-E-S, goes from approximately 5% to approximately 23%. That's a pretty good jump. It's a pretty good jump in a relatively short amount of time, and it kind of mirrors opposite what is happening with the Protestants. But what becomes interesting is where those graph trends end up going to. Catholics are going to continue to drop. The others are going to stay pretty close, but under 10%. But the trending line says that in 2030, 2035, we should have a confluence, a matching of none versus Protestant, which is very, very, very impressive in this country if those trends continue. And that's something that could be expected, assuming certain things stay in place. And we're going to kind of talk a little bit about that because, well, we've got a number of mitigating factors, but we've also got this graph that looks really, really good right about now. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what mitigating factors might be, why the none numbers are changing, and what could affect how quickly or how slowly that number changes. And look at that. By the way, folks, apparently I spoke earlier a little bit too soon. Joining us from Pittsburgh. Good morning, Joey.
Hi.
Good to have you. I was a little worried earlier tonight because I didn't have anybody.
Had to walk the dog.
Fair enough. So, Joe, since you didn't get the chance to see the graph, let me throw it your way also, so you can see it again. And there we go. I'm just throwing that up for everybody to see really quickly. That's the graph that we're working with at the moment. And I was just describing it. You see where 2035-ish Protestants and nuns, they're going to be meeting up with everybody. And where we're gonna go with this for the time being is why is that number changing? What might change how that plays out, and what can we expect to see, or what kind of warning signs might we notice about these kind of things? And I'm going to start this one off with education. And I'm sure you guys might have a little something to say on that, so that I don't end up talking through. And you guys are over in the live chat right now. I'm going to be checking in on you guys in just a couple of seconds. So whatever you guys have got to say, by all means, feel free. But Betsy DeVos, otherwise known as Professor Umbridge at this point. Some people understand that. I hope I got the right character. But who wants to go ahead and say what wonderful things our educational department at the federal level is doing at this point that might change how those nuns are coming out?
Well, if they get the voucher program through so people can go to religious schools with government money, that'll change how that turns out. Because everybody I've known who's gone to, well, except for Catholic schools, those seem to be good at educating people, but all the Protestant private schools that I've talked to people, well, specifically Baptist-based private schools, the educational standards are subpar would be a compliment. One friend was talking about her daughter's textbook, math textbook, and they were doing calculations for area in it, and they didn't say, a building is so many feet by so many feet. What's the area of the building? They said the building is so many crosses by so many crosses. And it's like, okay, I can understand you want to get religion into your math textbook, but don't do crosses because that's hard to translate into the real world. Say, for example, King Solomon's temple was so many feet by so many feet. What's the area of it? That, at least you get your religion in there and you actually get facts in there as well that people can use in the real world.
What's an arc?
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. Just build it 90 cubits by 30 cubits by 60 cubits. Uh-huh. What's a cubit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Nobody wants to laugh at a Bill Cosby joke these days.
It's understandable, but I mean, it's true. I mean, there's certain pieces that you can get away with fudging a little bit. I mean, that's the whole reason why the term widget was invented. It describes nothing. It is a fictitious thing. You can get away with saying, I'm going to manufacture widgets in this thought experiment, and here's all the parameters that go into whatever that widget is. It doesn't matter what it is. It,
Yeah.
it could be those googly eyes on a plastic backing for all I care. But seriously, by crosses?
Yeah, yeah. And she's like, I wondered why my daughter was so dumb, and now I know. And the reason the daughter was going to that school was because her ex-husband was insisting that the daughter go to that school, and he was paying for everything, and it was part of the whole divorce settlement. And I have learned a lot just from talking to women around here. Women absolutely get the shaft when it comes to divorce in Tennessee. Like one woman I know said that there's actually times that she is allowed to have a man over at her house if her children are there as part of the divorce settlement. And it doesn't matter what kind of relationship they're in. There's an exception for like her father, but that's it. If she has a boyfriend who wants to move in with her, can't do it. They have to get married, and then that's apparently okay. But he can't spend the night if the kids are there. He can't be there past a certain time if the kids are there. And she's like, well, I wouldn't just bring a random guy to the house and, bang him while the kids are there anyways. But the fact that that's written in the divorce decree is, pretty horrific. Of course, there's no comparable thing in her ex-husband's side of the divorce decree.
That's, haven't we talked about this kind of thing where how absolutely despicable it is that women over time have been property and very little else?
And it seems like we're moving in that direction again. I mean, we had made some progress, in the 70s and 80s, and then we're going backwards.
So yeah, I mean Stephanie's made an interesting point, and I'm going to kind of use a piece of this, believe it or not, saying that is an insane math textbook, assuming it's a textbook, as opposed to just running off dittos for anybody. Those of you that remember dittos, congratulations, you're as old as dirt too. Congratulations. She continued, I would suggest getting a proper European one for the kid, but we deal in metric, not imperial. Let me hit that a second. How many countries still use imperial measurement system exclusively?
3.
And we're the biggest one.
Yep.
I believe the other one is, one of the other two is Libya. And I can't tell you what the third one is.
I think it's like I think it's like a Southeast Asian country. I'm not sure. Or some weird, it's some spit in the water country. It's that you don't normally hear about. Even if we bomb them, you don't hear about it.
For all I know, it could be Latveria. That's who the hell cares? Some people actually know where Latveria is, and you people, congratulations. You need to get out more, or laid, or something. I don't know. The fact that I know what it is says that never mind. We're not talking about me. The point of it is, we here in the United States were going to make this shift. Were pre-1980. Go ahead.
If Thomas Jefferson hadn't run into financial difficulties, he would have developed something like the metric system before the French did. But he ran into financial difficulties and had to abandon the project. And even when the French came up with the metric system, our government attempted to embrace it, but it was put down for whatever reason. And we've had numerous attempts over the years to embrace it. And they've all been fought against for absurd reasons.
Yep. The first one that I can remember when I was a kid, in 76, 77. I had a good old-fashioned Aladdin metal lunchbox. You could kill somebody with one of these things.
Yeah.
But it was all about metric measurements of like everything. It wasn't conversions. It was actual metric the whole way through, a whole way around. I've seen them. They still exist in collections. But the reason why it was stopped was because Congress, who controls the money in the federal government, said, yeah, Mr. Peanut Farmer, yeah, we're not going to go ahead and support your transition from the imperial system that we use to the foreign, weird, wackadoo metric counting to 10. That's just stupid. Why would anybody want to do that? Which, by the way, Stephanie has also said, and your imperial is not the same as English imperial, just to add to the confusion, which is true. But then again, you sons of lots had to go dealing with decimalizing your money in the early 80s. No, mid 70s. Late 70s? Shit, when the hell was it? Oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. But when it was 7 shillings to a crown and 4 crowns to a kroner and 4 kroners to a frog's leg. I don't even know what in the hell it was that you guys were using, but everybody was yelling and screaming, why change it out when it's 6 pence to a crown and 4 crowns to a shilling or whatever the hell it was. I know I'm getting it all screwed up, doesn't matter. But then decimalized. And it worked. Granted, now they've got to use, well, they were using the euro, but yeah, it's not like anybody uses that anymore. Fucking Brexit. Anyway, but we, for whatever reason, at the federal level, said we don't need to change for anybody because why should we? We're America.
And well, let me just say, my last job, I worked for a medical supply company, and we exported a lot of stuff to various parts of the world. And all our measurements were, of course, imperial, and everybody else wants metric. So they would be designed in metric, and then they would do the conversion to imperial, and it made it really hard to figure out what the hell size the thing was supposed to be, because when you convert, so many millimeters to inches, you get some odd rounding at the end a lot of times. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this shit and I'm like, I know this was done in metric. That's why it's got these. Why can't we just switch everything over to metric? It just drove me batty.
Yeah, and Brigid, the medical is scientific. Don't you guys typically end up trying to figure out how many micrograms per kilogram for trying to figure out who gets how much medicine?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, injections. So many cc's of this. A whole, I know that they talk about like liters of that, this or that. So it's there. The only serious objection I've heard to using part of the metric system, not the whole thing, came from what's his name? Stephen, who does the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe.
Novella.
Yes, because he's an actual doctor. He says that the Celsius or centigrade scale doesn't have fine enough spacing, degrees compared to Fahrenheit. He says so somebody's temperature will look on Celsius will look okay, but on Fahrenheit you realize no, it's elevated and we've got to deal with this issue. So that's the only rational objection I've heard to metric.
To one piece in particular.
Right. It's not the whole thing. I mean, I know people say, well, kilometers are shorter than miles, so you'd have to put up more markers. That's not really a huge deal.
No, and truth be told, if you're trying to measure speed, measuring shorter amounts of speed, shorter amounts of distances per time gives a much more accurate reading anyway. And truth be told, if somebody says, your next turn is a kilometer away, you can kind of see where that is. It's far enough away that it's out there, but I've gotten used to my GPS. I've got it on metric. If it says that my next thing is coming up in 800 meters, okay, I know it's that guy over there in the distance. That's one that I'm going to be hitting. Easy enough. And Joe, you guys, when you're in the military, you typically deal in kilometers. No. You can say yes at least.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we're an international effort, so we have to be able to use the same units as our allies. Think of it like NATO. We all use roughly the same cartridges for our weapons, even though the weapons might be different. Example, AR-15 or M16 and the FAMAS or the L86 series produced by Britain. They all use the same magazines, they all use the same cartridges, but they're completely different rifles.
Yeah, and backing up one other thing, Brigid, only because I wanted to get this one in particular in. Nurses, when the example I was using was trying to remember how to figure out how many micrograms per kilogram for particular drugs for people, because this is something I remember having heard when Fuji was going through for for cancer and what stuff had to go into her. That is something that when you're in the professional field as a healthcare worker like that, you just know how that stuff works because you use it so often, right?
Yeah, and I mean it's everything is done in metrics. As far as like medicines, scientific research, that's just the standard that we all use, and it's pretty easy.
And I'll point out a problem, a very expensive problem, which was caused by the fact that we use Imperial, the Mars Polar Lander, because they forgot that one set was using metric and the other set was using Imperial, so the retros didn't fire at the proper time, and the thing just augured into the ground, and all that was lost.
It made a great impression on NASA's collective consciousness. Ain't that the truth? This is what happens. Now, why did I want to go down this particular rabbit hole? To show that, education matters. The world has settled on a standard that works. And as Stephanie had also said, as far as to the using Celsius scale for temperature, your doctor friend can't use decimals. Yeah, that's pretty much the same thing that I was thinking. I mean, we have sensitive enough equipment. I mean, even in my cabinet, I've got a kid's thermometer that is digital, that can measure out to 1/10 of a degree Fahrenheit. The idea that you can't have one that could measure to the 100th of a degree centigrade? Yeah, no, I'm sorry. That's crap. That's absolutely crap. It's relatively easy to do at this point. I can't believe otherwise. But the education part is the problem. That particular groups, a small group by comparison, like my country, hi everybody, will suddenly say, we know better for our group than all the rest of you who have been just perfectly fine for the last almost 200 years with that meter thing. We don't believe in that frou-frou stuff over there and kill what? No. But we're going to measure kilotons of TNT.
But it's
because
base 10. I mean, that's so simple.
But then again, like I was saying before, British money was based on 6s and 12s and 4s. I think There were twos and threes for a couple of things, but it's what they got used to. The Frantics had done a comedy skit where they were trying to use the Arabic number system. Why would anybody want to use that base 10 thing? If you wanted to say 34, why didn't you just say XXXIIII? It's so easy. What's wrong with you?
I
know. I know.
No. Zero was not introduced into Europe until like the Renaissance, and people were reluctant to use it. And the only reason they started using it was because it made double entry bookkeeping easier.
So see, technology doesn't just get pushed ahead by porn, it gets pushed ahead by bookkeepers. Yay. That's just weird right there.
Yeah. That was, if you remember the old TV series Connections by James Burke, I recently rewatched it, and that was one of the things that he pointed out was that, Asia, lots of places in the world had a zero, but it took the Europeans a while to adopt it because it just seemed weird. They didn't like the idea of nothing because they thought there always had to be something, because if there was nothing, then that meant there was no God.
Jeez. So the point of this whole bunny hole is that, education will change what the nuns, how many nuns there are, because as we've pointed out before, atheism, or at the very least claiming no affiliation, which is not the same thing, please remember, it's not the same thing, that atheism is a result of additional insight and investigation. Atheism does not cause more insight. More insight causes atheism. Meaning, the more educated, the more that you investigate, the more that you are encouraged to investigate, the more you realize all that stuff is just hooey because, well,
shit doesn't add up.
Yeah, that's probably the nicest way of putting it. So, like I was saying, Betsy DeVos here in the U.S., the current Secretary of Education, never spent a day in public school, never worked in a public school capacity. Kids never went to public school, has no concept of how public school works because never dealt with them before, and has been pushing for much more. Let's sanitize this just a little bit. Much more inclusiveness in a theocratic form of I can't sanitize this bullshit. It's just crap the whole way. She's so Christian. It's absolutely ridiculous. I could almost say that her skin was whiter than her teeth. All right. Shout out to the Mormons out there, you guys. Yeah, screw you guys too. But I mean, trying to get kids to go to Christian schools, and Joe, you went to Catholic school at one point. You were saying, I mean, education wise, generally speaking, overall wasn't bad for Catholic school, if I remember correctly.
I don't know whether you'd want me to comment on that, considering by the time I got out of that situation, I was held back several grades because apparently I didn't receive the best possible education at that particular establishment.
Okay, let me work this a different way. Were you held back because you were banging the nuns?
Yeah, no.
Okay, good. Then that's perfectly fine. Then you can go ahead and you can answer this perfectly. Generally speaking, Catholic schools, for their core education, are supposedly okay.
Well, I suppose. I can't speak from experience, mind you. I
Okay.
mean, yeah, I attended one, but remember, I was very young, and there were other things going on in my life at the time.
Yeah, well, yeah, there is that.
Yes.
And truth be told, let's be perfectly frank here. You have more experience with Catholic schools than I think the rest of us do, because I went through public school the whole time. I think the rest of you guys,
Yeah.
Brigid, I don't even remember what kind of education did you have as a kid?
Oh, wow. Very good. Um, I I went to a Church of Christ school from
Ooh.
school until I graduated, so it was subpar.
Yeah, I attended Catholic school until grade 3, at which point many court dates and many hop, skips, and jumps over state lines later, I was finally enrolled in public education, and they went ahead and put me back in grade 3 because there was some stuff missing from my previous education. And after a few years, I was fast-tracked and skipped 2 years forward.
There you go. And yeah, by the way, for those of you that think that I actually didn't remember about Brigid's education, oh please, come on, give me a little bit more credit than that.
So at the end, it all kind of balanced out as far as...
Okay. And Tucker, you went through public education also, then, same as me?
Yeah. From kindergarten through, well, college and trade school. It was all public. And in fact, I lived in a town of 5,000 people. So from kindergarten to my senior year, I, went through with the same people, many of the teachers. If the teachers had been there a little while, they knew my older brothers. And it was a fairly poor school district. So we, like my 8th grade history textbook was out of date when my brothers had it. It had a pope. It talked about the pope who was then, at the time the book was written, he died before I was born. To give you an idea of how old that textbook was. I was born in 68, and this, and the Pope died in like 67 or 66. I don't remember. Or, somewhere around the time. Because he was not the Pope, when I was growing up. Not that I paid any attention to it. So John Paul the First became Pope, and then, a month later he cacked it. They got JP2. But no, that's the kind of education I got, and that was in a small town in the middle of Ohio. I moved to Tennessee when I graduated high school to go to college here, and I quickly discovered that, holy shit, did I get a good education compared to what they have down here. It astounds me, the things that, you would think people would know, like what country Hitler was in when he was... just all kinds of stuff. And you have conversations with people who are intelligent, and you hit something and you realize you never got this education. It was never explained to you, and they're like, no. It's
What was that, Bridge?
Who's Hitler?
Yeah, well, it wasn't that bad, but they thought Hitler was from Spain.
No, Hitler was not from Spain. Mussolini was from Spain.
But it was, it was just crazy. And there were courses in college where it was like, I'd hear the professor talking, and I understood everything, and I would stop answering because I was the only one responding because nobody knew anything. And I just It's like, I can't be the only one who knows this shit. And it was, and I like dropped the class because I just felt so bad. It's like I'm ahead of these people, and the professor is practically tearing his hair out because it's basic, simple stuff, and the people don't know it.
And Brigid, as far as to the growing up, like you said, you grew up with a heavily Christian influenced, I dare I even say it, curriculum?
Yeah. And it was young Earth creationism, and we were taught that we could determine the age of the Earth by counting all the begats in the Bible and all that. And so when I went to nursing school later on, I was in for a rude awakening because I had never heard of, evolutional theory or survival of the fittest or any of that stuff.
Which is kind of important when you're dealing with things like drug-resistant bacteria.
Yeah, I mean, but I had never been exposed to any of that before, so it was really shocking.
Yeah, now the reason I wanted to make sure that we had this piece to also is that, well, I got what I think was a pretty good education overall. I intentionally went very music heavy my last 2 years because that's where my drive was at. I was intending to go on to become either a music performer or a music educator. Unfortunately, I was not cut out for college. I simply did not. I didn't have it to me. Such is life. But there are a number of things that I wish that I had been lucky enough to have learned. I learned all my basic stuff. At least what I would think was basic stuff. I unfortunately was taught a lot by rote for history, where I really truly believe that if people learned history as the story of humanity, it would take so much better, as opposed to, all right, what year did this happen? Who was involved? Where were they? You can put that back down on paper. Good. Next topic. That's one of those things. When I learned for myself a lot of the pieces about history for a show I was producing a number of years ago, I learned so much more. And if anybody wants to find out just how much I learned that I never knew, go look up the USS Kirk. There is a story about the USS Kirk at the end of the Vietnam War. And that is how I learned when South Vietnam, the Republic of South Vietnam, actually fell. I've talked about it before. We'll leave it for another time, and we'll come back to that later.
If I may do a slight hijack, I have an excellent history podcast I'd like to recommend. It's called My History Can Beat Up Your Politics. The host is Bruce Carlson, and what he does is it just covers American history, but he takes an event from the past that greatly resembles something that's happening now and goes over it in detail. And it is surprising what he can pull out that you're like, wait, a lot of this shit that we're dealing with Trump that, everybody's like, oh, nothing like this has ever happened before. He's managed to find incidents in American history where something similar to this has happened. And he goes over it in detail. He's very unbiased, so he doesn't, weight it one way or the other. And it's mind-blowing, the stuff that he finds, and it's just incredibly fascinating.
Now, like I was saying, part of this is also because I grew up with what I thought was a pretty okay education. Could have gotten more, could have gotten better. Okay. Joe's early education failed him and then caught up. Good. Tucker ended up doing really well. And the standout is Brigid, because even though Brigid was brought up with mythology as truth, And you believed it full on, if I remember right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was full on truth for her. She's now on with us as a full on well, no, wait, don't tell me. Don't tell me. It's not none. Atheist. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm not mischaracterizing you at this point, right?
No.
I know. I'm a dick today. What can I tell you? But the point of it is, even people who have gotten bad education can still come out. And those are the people that I think are probably the ones that we need to try to assist the most. Because they're the ones who, and this is going to sound underhanded, but let me put it, for instance, your way, Brigid. You believed lock stock in what you had been taught in this, and I'm assuming, of course, that you were with a bunch of other people who likewise believed all the stuff and bought into it, and it was what it was.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let me run a for instance past you. If you were friends with someone as a youngster, and they started to kind of made mention about, hey, you know, this piece that's being talked about. Yeah, you know what? I found something that doesn't quite add up with that. And there's another piece that kind of doesn't add up with that either. And I don't know. Maybe we should look into that. Wouldn't those little bits of curiosity start to take in because it's somebody that you knew, somebody that you trusted, that maybe curiosity would make you go, no, that can't be right, can it? I mean, the curiosity factor would be just too high to completely pass up, no?
Well, it's kind of hard to say because part of the way that the indoctrination works is they teach you not to question it because just even thinking about questioning it would get you sent to hell. So it was like an automatic reaction to just run away and back away from any of that. And it's insidious in that way.
You know, that's a good word for it. Damn. I really hadn't thought of it in that particular term, and that's a term that's got a lot of baggage to it. And I can well imagine you don't use that term lightly in this particular case.
No. I rarely use that word to refer to anything at all, but it fits.
So we know full well that bad education can be corrected for. That the outside world, outside that bubble, I guess is probably the best way of putting it, will not allow for long that insulation to last in the greater world. I mean, hell, we can joke all we want about the Amish being, you know, so incredibly backwards and keeping all their technology from the early 1800s. I think it is. I've forgotten exactly what year the technological cutoff is, depending as to which version of orthodoxy they follow. But they know about the outside world. They know that there's stuff out there, but they choose to simply not use it, even though they're aware of it. They're not completely ignorant.
Actually, they don't completely cut themselves off. Most of your Amish have smartphones now. They all have little birdhouse looking things with solar panels on them, and they plug their smartphones into that. They're allowed to use the stuff, but they can't bring it into the house. There's a great documentary called The Devil's Playground, which is about the years between when an Amish person is like 16, I think it is, and 21, where they're allowed to go. It's kind or something. I forget the German name that they use.
Rumspringa, I believe is
Rumspringa. That's it. That's what it is. Where they're allowed to interact with society and as ordinary people. And they show, like, one of the guys that they follow, his father or uncle, one of his male relatives at any rate, has a woodworking shop, and they show the place. And he's got diesel generators powering everything, because for some reason they're prohibited from getting the stuff from the electricity from the grid. But they got electric lights, they've got electric tools. It's all modern equipment, but it all has to be powered by the generator. And it's just it's one of those loopholes that they go to be able to do whatever they want.
Yeah, I know that we've also talked on various occasions about various loosening and tightening of rules for the Amish, where some groups completely eschew, but they will have a communal telephone for emergencies, for instance.
Right.
And for the most part, up this way, I have seen the Amish who are up at Niagara Falls, and they're not taking buggies up there. They're taking buses. They're not using it themselves, meaning they're not operating it, but they'll take advantage of it. And especially for a safety thing, yeah, I'm totally on board on that. No, I got no problem. You guys want to keep doing your thing? You're not hurting nobody. Fine, cool, all right, whatever. But I think one of the biggest pieces is still education, learning. I forgot what the quote was, but there's something along the lines of the more people travel, the fewer the fewer strangers they have in their lives. I know I'm completely way off base on this one, but the idea, I'm pretty sure, is pretty sound. The more you get out, the more you travel, especially away from where you were born, or especially outside of your own country, the fewer people that you tend to isolate in your own head.
Yeah. I have a friend who lives in Sweden, and he talks about going to all these countries in Europe, and he says that's one thing he really likes about being in Europe is the fact that he can he can experience so many different cultures fairly easily, whereas in the US, I mean, we're a large country, so and if you want to go somewhere, unless you're like you in New York or on the northern side or the southern side, it's a long journey.
Yeah, and I do need to point one out that Stephanie had said. Amish take their kids out of school at 14. That leaves their kids unable to function in the rest of society. I think that's harmful. Yes, I can agree with that. However, there are mitigating pieces to that. For instance, the Amish tend to be, and I'm overgeneralizing, and I know it. I'm sorry, but the Amish, to what I can remember, tend to be, I guess the nicest way of putting it is, they are I don't want to say civilization of, they are a culture of tradespeople.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't think of any better way of putting it. Maybe not necessarily the most modern of stuff that they would utilize, but they do tend to be tradespeople in some form or other. You kind of have to when you've got almost all of your stuff is, well, you make all of your own stuff for the most part.
Yeah, yeah, and
Now,
and
yeah,
they do have a very strong. It's not work ethic, but they, you know, they. My brother, he worked. One of his jobs, he was installing stuff in places, fast food joints that were being built, and he always noticed when he worked in a place that the Amish had supplied stuff, because the Amish supplied stuff was generally better made in the sense that it adhered to the specifications than other places. And he recounted one time they were setting up, he was installing the drive-through window at a Wendy's, and this was back when they had the food bars. And it was an Amish company that had built the food bar and an Amish company that was installing the food bar, and the some part of the food bar was a 32nd of an inch off. Nobody is going to notice that. But the foreman on the Amish crew called the factory and chewed them out. Didn't use any profanity, but he chewed them out because they had gotten that spec wrong. Which, that, you know, that's a commendable thing. That's like the Japanese. I worked for a company that supplied parts to Honda, and they tried to pull a fast one on Honda, and were stunned that Honda spent 5 hours on the phone lecturing them that, no, you have to meet the specs. You can't screw around with this stuff.
that's impressive. As somebody who has done leather work, granted it's not been in a long time, but I can still remember when I was doing it, I could tell the difference between two different grades, thicknesses of leather by looking at them, and they could have been off by like one measurement between each other, and I could feel it, I could touch it, I could look at it and tell the difference between 6-ounce veg tan leather and 7-ounce veg tan leather. Now, is there a real noticeable difference? You put them next to each other, you can kind of see it, but just on its own, oh yeah, that's 6. No, that's 7. No, that's 6. Oh yeah, you're right. That's 6. All right. You people who've never dealt with this before, it doesn't mean anything to you. But trust me, if there is something that you have ever worked on a lot, and you can just know it on sight, you would just know it. It's the same kind of thing. But yeah, that's when you know your shit. You know your shit.
Yeah. So I will commend the Amish for that. Or at least some of them. I'm sure they're like every group, that there's somebody who will be more than happy to screw you over if they can. As William S. Burroughs said, when you're doing business with a religious son of a bitch, make sure you get it in writing. His word doesn't mean shit. Not with the good Lord telling him how to fuck you on the deal.
It's 4 bombs tonight. All right, that's good. That's fine. Whatever. Anyway, so but the point of it is that, you know, education, learning about as much as possible, is probably one of the biggest contributing factors to the number of the religious dropping. I mean, we currently live in the information age. You cannot get away from that, no matter what's been going on in the public, in the law rooms. And before anybody goes ahead and starts talking about it, I know, believe me, I watch, I hear, I know. I just didn't want to be dealing with that right now. But
and
yep,
I just according to people who know Mormon missionaries, when they're sent out on their mission trips, they're prohibited from using the internet because, you know, they don't want them digging around and poking up. Oh, wait. So Joseph Smith was arrested for fraud because he was claiming to find sacred artifacts and admitted in court that no, he made it all up.
Yeah. But we've still got that small problem then, don't we? The people who keep that bubble in place at all costs.
And we have systems designed to feed that bubble because, you know, Google says, oh, I'm going to tailor my search results to your interests. So if you're not, you know, if you're a Fox viewer, we're going to tailor things that Fox viewers tend to like. We're not going to, oh, well, no, this is absolute bullshit. I mean, there's all, at one point in time, I don't know if it's still true or not, but like the top search result for, you know, if you were looking up things on the Holocaust, the top site was a Holocaust denier. And it's like, you know, guys, I don't care what your, you know, what your algorithm thinks. That's something that should never be at the top. Unless you're
specifically looking for Holocaust denial.
Yeah, right.
No, right. Me and you, man, sabbatical on that one, completely and utterly. And I'm sorry, considering that I was at a my trip up to Toronto was for Vernal Equinox, which was the holiday party for a FurCon. When you started to say a Fox watcher, I'm sorry, not the same thing that was coming through my head, and it's Joe is just looking at me, just that. Okay, yeah, fine. It was funny to me. Leave me alone.
Hey, man, I knew about furries in the late 80s, so I know exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah, fair enough. By the way, Joe, yeah, I don't know how you guys drink this stuff. This is
what is it?
Johnny Walker.
I don't drink Black Label.
Johnny Walker is shit, in my opinion.
I drink Jameson. I drink Guinness. I drink Maker's Mark.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had Johnny Walker.
Johnny Walker is crap. I mean, at least the stuff that I can afford to buy.
I've had Beefeater. I've had quite a few different sorts of alcohol in different combinations, which is why I will never touch a mixed drink again, because that was 1 year in Korea that I really
don't remember.
Regret. No, I remember plenty of it.
That's the problem.
Well,
if you, to give a whiskey recommendation, Bushmills, as he said, Jameson or Maker's Mark. That's a good one. At Buffalo Trace is personally my favorite. It's a bourbon, which is actually the same thing as a whiskey, save for a few minor details. All excellent. All go down very smooth, and actually have a good taste to them.
Okay, so
I don't drink it for the taste. That's why I don't like kids these days with their fucking peppermint schnapps and all their shit.
You know me, my big thing is just wine.
The whole point of alcohol was that you were willing to go through the burn and the ache and the terrible taste so that you could forget whatever the hell it was that you were drinking about in the first place. That was the trade-off. That was the trade-off.
Well, I'll be honest. If they made whiskey with no alcohol in it, I would
I'll
drink
drink
it because I love the taste.
I wouldn't.
No, that's fine. The reason why I was drinking it is because Friday was the anniversary of the day that we lost Hitch, which is the only reason I ever buy these vials.
Yep, Jameson and Tullamore, two fine ways to enjoy your potatoes.
I'll just stick with Five Guys. Thank you very much.
And I just want to point out, in 3 days, we're coming up on the anniversary of Sagan's death.
Yeah, there's another one. Anyway, so I think we've pretty well beat the dead horse as far as to how that we cannot overstate the importance of education. We simply cannot. Yeah. But with the half an hour or so that we've still got left, I think one of the things that we should try to understand, what can we expect to see going forward? Because if the trending lines right now are that the nuns are almost on par with Catholics, which, you know what? Hey, Catholics, the fact that there are any of you left at this point is abomination to society.
Oh, God. Yeah.
This coming from someone who was Roman Catholic, thank you very much.
What was it Tom Petty said? If your club supports child molesters, I wouldn't be giving any money to your club.
Yeah. It's right on the money, so to speak. But if education is the linchpin to bringing down so many of these religious groups as a whole, what are we going to see for education going forward? Well, we know full well that it has to stay at a high level. Otherwise, I mean, we just end up turning this country into a third world graveyard. But what will we end up seeing as the nuns become a larger and larger majority of the populace? And what kind of backlash do you think that we're going to end up having to try to stave that off? Joe, I think that some of the things that you've talked about in the past might be kind of interesting on this one. You said that when you went into basic training with the Army, you dealt with a lot of people from a lot of different areas, a lot of which were guys who were educated in the South, especially.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of wondering, there had to have been a lot of them that ended up in the Dust Bowl along with you after basic and everything. And
actually, no.
Okay,
you got to remember we have I think 5 posts that do basic training, and from there you get split up based on your AIT.
I'm sorry, AIT?
Advanced Individual Training. It's your MOS training. You go to basic, you learn to be a soldier. You're a soldier first no matter what. Then you go to, well, if you're infantry, you stay with your basic unit and you go through infantry training, which is pretty much more the same. You also go through map reading, stuff like that. But say you're a signaleer. You would go to basic training, and then you would go to Fort Gordon, Georgia, to the signal school. And you would go through AIT at the signal school. And you would learn all the ins and outs of your particular field for I'm trying to remember what the designation for cable guys. Their whole job is running cable, knowing different types of cable, splicing cable. There's different AITs for, mechanics, infantry, armor. So you might not necessarily see the people that you went to basic with, because after you're done, it depends on what your job's going to be after basic.
Okay.
So, no, after basic training, I never saw any of the of my platoon mates or my company mates again, because I went to an entirely different AIT than them.
Okay. All right. That being the case, then let me run this differently. Then the guys that you ended up with, and I keep referring to it as the Dust Bowl, and to be clear, I'm talking about roughly the Middle East, and I say roughly because don't really need to go into any particulars.
Now, some of the guys I went to AIT with, yeah, they went to the same unit that I did, and for the most part, when our first duty station was over in Korea during the little missile issue, and then as our time ran up in Korea, we started going one by one, and we were transferred to new units. And of course, because the unit that we were going to was getting ready to deploy, a lot of us went to that particular unit. So those guys, yeah, I stuck together with.
Okay. Then I guess the what I was really looking to get into was the guys that you were with in these other countries, in these vastly different areas with different cultures, different languages, different behaviors, different mores, different food. I'm kind of wondering. That's not something that is exactly a taught thing. Although you can be taught certain aspects of it, you're never going to learn all of the pieces. Is there anything that you kind of remember as to how these guys thought about, or what they said, or if there's something along the lines of, I always thought, but I never expected.
I mean, there were moments of that, but we in my particular unit, we had a guy from Brooklyn. We had a guy from Arkansas, had a guy from Nigeria, and I mean, we didn't get too much to talking about, what's going on with the locals, but for the most part, we were all pretty open-minded.
Funny enough, I
do remember one case where it did surprise one of my guys to find how bad off it was over there. You'd think a capital of a country of any country that has oil would be pretty, spruce and clean and tidy. And well, the Tigris River was anything but.
I knew a guy who was in the first Gulf War, and he talked about being in Saudi Arabia. And he said one of the things is that, if their car broke down for a minor reason, the Saudis, not the military guys, but if their car broke down for, a minor reason, they just abandon it there and go buy a new one. And the poorer people would come along and strip the thing for parts.
Yeah.
You know, I the only foreign country I've been to is Canada, and so I really can't comment on the rest of the world from firsthand experience. I don't know, and I would not go to, you know, the Middle East or a whole host of countries just because of how they treat the, you know, people.
And another thing is, to be fair, I'm not the best person to ask on that particular regard because, you know, the folks that were local to the areas I was in were generally running for their lives because, you know, constantly exploding world around them. So to say that, you know, it's not the best lens to observe other cultures under would be a gross understatement.
I knew a guy who he wasn't, it's not psyops, but he was his job in Afghanistan as part in the army was, you know, dealing with the locals and interacting with them and trying to get them to cooperate with the U.S. military, as well as trying to help
Just
them have a better life.
Intelligence.
Yeah, somewhere around there. And he said that, you know, the thing that he ran into and he had a hard time coming up with a good answer for it was the locals would tell him, look, you guys are going to leave at some point. The Taliban are always going to be here. And he's like, how, you know, how can you get something, you know, an interaction going with these people when they're right? Whatever we do while we're here has the potential of being erased as soon as we're gone. And I pointed him to some things that I thought might help. There's a guy by the name of Edward de Bono who, you know, tries to do. He's got a number of books where he tries to get people to be able to think differently, not change anybody's mind, but just get them to have a broader perspective on things. And, you know, I don't know if that helped or not. And the guy's back in the States, so I'm sure he doesn't have any idea of what happened after he left. But that is a huge problem with a place like Afghanistan. And we don't want to stay there because, you know, for a variety of reasons. I mean, it's
what you're looking for, Shujin, are misconceptions, right?
To a degree, I think more along the lines of guys having misconceptions and then learning.
Yeah,
accidentally. Well, shit, I didn't know.
Well, I do actually have a good example. And now I'm remembering laughing my butt off because there was a comedian, Gabriel Iglesias, who had made a comment, who had done a skit that was very similar to this. The whole, everybody thinks we're angry. They're always angry. We're not angry. It's hot. You give me air conditioning, I am so happy. No, really, one of the things that surprised me and, you know, all my guys was how, at least for Afghanistan, how hospitable the people were. I mean, here we are. Look, there's no two ways about it. We were invaders in their country. But they treated us with every bit of respect, you know, and, you know, you'd expect with every film and cartoon and parody of it, you know, they always depict people of the Islamic faith, people of the Middle East. They always depict them as these stoic, very silent types who, you know, it's completely wrong. They have the same senses of humor and, you know, they laugh. They laugh. And that's probably one of the insane things that people can't even picture is somebody from the Middle East laughing.
Every culture, when they go to war with another society, they seek to dehumanize their opponent because it makes it easier for you to kill, because you're not thinking, oh, this is somebody just like me.
But something I do want to point out is for example, when 9/11 happened, the collective feel from the majority of America was, well, the Middle East did it. And so everybody over there must be, bad folks. Everybody's a terrorist. No, not even fucking close.
Right.
The terrorist groups over there, you can equate them effectively to the Westboro Baptist Church here in America.
Right.
They're a minority.
Right. It's, the thing I like to point out is that, you had, when say a suicide bomber kills somebody, it makes the news and everybody racks the deaths up to Islamic terrorism. But when you have somebody dying in America of, say, AIDS, nobody says, well, the reason they died is because religious people blocked research into treating that person. Or, you have all these kids that die because their parents would rather rely on prayer than actual medicine. That's, those kids are just as dead by religion as if somebody, a Muslim terrorist had blown them up. But it doesn't make the news. It isn't as spectacular because we've normalized Christianity and we think, oh, well, they're just whack job Christians. They're not like regular Christians. And I'm certain that most people who are Muslim think the same thing about the suicide bombers and various terrorists. They're not really Muslim. They're just whack job Muslims. The same as we feel about people who, don't believe in medicine or blood transfusions or whatever because they're Christian. It's a normalization thing. And I really don't think that until we've had a generation or two where the majority is an atheist that will actually get a handle on how much damage religion has done to our society.
You hit on a piece that I don't know if it's the booze talking, because yes, I did finish off that vial of stuff because fucking you, Hitch. Thanks, man. Fuck you too. I'm not going to start smoking cigars though. That's
my field.
That's sort of, but
this is pipe tobacco.
Fine. Brigid, I'm gonna completely side rail this at this point because like I said, it might be the booze talking, it might be the sad in me talking, but he mentioned something that I don't think that we can get away from. Blood transfusions, a complete abomination to the faith for Jehovah's Witness.
Mm-hmm.
In most cases, you can't even have your own blood kept.
Well, that includes any blood products at all.
Which means no platelets, no binding agents if you're bleeding out, no infusion of plasma.
Right.
Which means which means you've got what left over to use, except for just saline.
Yeah, and if they trying to think how to put this, we did have a foster girl living with us a while back whose mother was Jehovah's Witness, and she told me that when she was younger, she'd had to have heart surgery, and that it didn't occur to her until she was about 16 years old that her mother would have been willing to let her die if she needed a transfusion because it wouldn't have been available to her. And that just horrified her.
Let's hit another one. Mental health. Scientologists absolutely poo-poo the idea of mental health and helping people who have disorders of some kind or other. What can happen to people who have severe mental disorders?
Well,
Shooting sprees in places like Las Vegas and Sandy Hook, to name but two.
well, they need medication, and that's denied to them. Yeah, that they become a danger not only to themselves but to others.
Which means things like schizophrenia, for instance, which is not typically what people think of as schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is it is scary to people who don't understand it, and the vast majority of us don't. And people who organizations who think that 9-year-old children are witches because they I don't know what, because they went through they have convulsions sometimes in some areas of Africa, and they're ready to be put to death as witches at 9 years old. Am I forget if I'm completely misremembering this or if I'm remembering it all too accurately now.
I don't know for certain, but given the way human beings tend to work when it comes to religion, I'm going to say you're probably right.
Yeah, that has happened.
Yeah. And go on the opposite side. People who are in their upper golden and silver years, who are been told, you know what, God is going to whisk that broken hip away, and look at you, you can walk now, can't you? That's wonderful. Go ahead and send me more money over here in this stadium so I can keep doing this. And what ends up happening to these people a couple of days afterwards? They end up back in the hospital because they think that they're good, and a couple of days later, you know, that broken hip, all of a sudden, it's just the same as it always was. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm thinking that this is the alcohol talking through me now, because I'm trying to concentrate on a particular item, and it's just fits away.
Yeah, lightweight. Yeah, lightweight.
Well, like I said, I did not have quite a lot to eat, and I probably should have had something before I came on the air, but you know, timing, it's all it was.
Well, I've consumed probably a fifth of alcohol this evening, so, and I'm still coherent.
Well, these guys will tell you, I've polished off a 750 ml bottle of wine in one sitting here with everybody, so you know. I've pulled my share.
But the alcohol content of your average bottle of wine is probably 30%. I'm working on stuff that's a lot higher proof than that.
Yes, but how much of it?
A fifth. I mean, I know I've had 6 glasses of rum and half a fifth of whiskeys so far this evening. I was at a Christmas party earlier, and that's where I had the rum. So,
See, I see what your problem is. You're a quitter. That's what your problem is.
No. I do not quit drinking. I had a German roommate in college. I learned how to drink, my friend. I can put this stuff away. And since I'm Irish, I don't get hangovers.
Joe, was it the Germans or the Australians that you had that one night with? Drinking.
Buttons. You're a terrible cat.
Was it the Aussies?
Or it was both.
Oh. Well, there you go.
Terrible cat. Get away. Get away.
Anyway.
Thank you.
You know what? I don't like to end on a downer, but Stephanie had an item over here too. A suicidal 7-year-old autistic kid has been in a non-mental health ward because she said there is nowhere near enough beds for kids with mental health. No, you wrote it right. I'm sorry. There are nowhere near enough beds for kids with mental health. And that's over there in across the pond, in a place where one would think that things would be a little bit better. One would think. We're getting close to wrapping this up. I will drop my one. I'll drop my one piece, and then let you guys have your own closing. We cannot have proper education when from on high people are told, "Thou shalt not utter these terms," like science-based, evidence-based. The hell is wrong with you? You want a collection of idiots? Fine. But don't think that the rest of us are going to follow you, because we know better than that. You don't get to make yourself feel bigger and better and smarter because you tried to raise a bunch of idiots. We're smart enough to not let you. As far as I'm going to close with, because I don't want to start going on to a tirade, never mind a rant at this point. And believe me, I got more than enough to rant about with everything else that's been going on. Joe, I don't know, is there anything that you'd like to end up closing up with at this point?
No, I've said my pieces. You're not the only one who's having trouble right now, because while I haven't drank anything other than a bit of soda, I had a very busy day today, and I am exhausted.
Yep, fair enough. I can all too well understand that. Brigid, how about you? Anything that you wanted to close with?
Well, the only thing that I would add is if the internet had been around back when I was in high school and college, it probably would have made a huge difference as far as where I am now, and realizing I'd been lied to a lot sooner.
Welcome to the age of the internet. I keep calling this the information age, and it's been used many times over, and man, ain't that the truth. And Tucker, I wanted to give you the opportunity as the savior guest, if you will, whatever, however you'd like to end up closing us off at this point, man, feel free.
I want to recommend that everyone buy, beg, borrow, or steal one book. It is The True Believer by Eric Hoffer. I read it in high school, and then I reread it in October of this year. It is basically the blueprint for the Trump campaign. It describes how mass movements start, how they gain traction, and how you can fight against them. It was written in the 1950s. It is stunning and how well it predicts things like what Trump has done, and it does offer some hope as to how we can combat them, because we are in a very vulnerable place. If we don't play things out just right, we will end up a theocracy. I know with the whole chart that you posted and everything, it doesn't seem like that's possible. Trust me, it is. We absolutely need that. And I'm not going to claim that, Hoffer was absolutely right in everything he said, but it certainly offers us a blueprint to work from. And hopefully, if more people read that book, we can go beyond the kind of petty shit that made Trump popular to some people. Because, we have, he appealed to, white working class people because he said certain things, even though it should have been obvious he never would have done those things. It doesn't necessarily mean that certain ideas are bad. It just means that we have to be careful how they're executed. That we have to be certain that we're guided by reason, not emotion. And the True Believer talks about the triggers for emotion, which we need to know about, because it's hard to fight against emotion because so many people are driven by it. Even atheists who are, we like to say we're more intelligent than the believers, but we're not necessarily so. And we need to be able to recognize when we're driven by emotion, because we may not be right in our feelings. I am not, and certainly Hoffer wasn't trying to say that emotions are bad, but we need to recognize when our thought processes are being dominated by emotions and when they're being dominated by reason. And we need to realize that there are times when reason needs to rule rather than our emotions. And like I said, when I reread the book in October of last year, it just seemed to be a blueprint for Trump's campaign. And that's depressing because Hillary should have won. I'm not a huge fan of Hillary, but she was by far more qualified to be president than Trump is.
Fair enough. And for everybody to know about it, yeah, there have been a couple of notes that I've been kind of taking as we've been going along, because I didn't trust myself to remember them all. So after the show is finished processing over at YouTube, I'll make sure that all the stuff is up there in the show notes for you guys to check out at your discretion. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for being with us tonight. We hope that you had yourself a good time and you found something worthwhile in all the stuff that we had to talk about tonight. I'm going to start off, of course, by thanking Tucker for basically saving my bacon for joining, because, like I said, I started the show and it was just me, and then Brigid showed up, and Tucker is just like, "Yeah, I'll ride in on the white horse and save you," because I actually begged for help, and thank you so much for that, Tucker. By all means, give everybody all your information, and if there's some way that you'd like people to be in touch with you.
Well, my podcast, The Atheist in the Trailer Park, is available on iTunes and other fine podcatchers. And if you go to tparkatheist.blogspot.com, you can find the show notes as well as links to the episodes. And there's also a Facebook page. So if you type in The Atheist in the Trailer Park on Facebook, you'll find the Facebook page. Give the show a listen. I won't promise it's any good, but you will, in every episode, get to hear from my cats. And God knows we all love cats on the internet. So,
yes, we're especially fond of Heretic Woman's pussies. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Don't leave, of course, because I got to make sure that I get all your link information before you go. Joey, you take good care of yourself, man. Go back to sleep, because something tells me you could probably use it right about now. You need it so much you've forgotten about that mute button again.
Haven't had the chance to sleep yet, so...
Oh, all the more reason.
Yeah. We had to go for pictures with Santa Claus today.
I miss the days when I was young enough that sleep didn't matter to me. Now, I will kill you if you don't let me sleep when I want to.
Comparing the photo this year with the one from last year. Last year, he's sitting there holding the puppy, and the puppy's just like, "Duh." This year, she sat down next to him after much coaxing, and I swear they must have timed that camera perfectly, because they picked the best picture out of the whole lot, and several of the ones between when we finally got her to sit down and when she was done were very much akin to
For those of you listening to the show, you're just going to have to fast forward.
You already know what an angry dog looks like, especially one that's eyeing somebody out the corner of their gaze and is just like, "I'm about to rip that beard off your face, and possibly your face with it." Remember, dogs, they love to patrol the neighborhood for men with hats and beards. So, to all you Santas out there, pick your neighborhoods carefully.
I'll try to remember that and not take that personally myself. Brigid, thank you, hon. I appreciate it. And go ahead and plug your stuff, because, I mean, what else are you going to do, right?
Right. You can find me on Facebook, Brigid Fitch, or you can go read my musings on my blog at brigidfitch2112.wordpress.com.
And as usual, everybody, thank you very much for being with us. If you'd like to check out all of the show notes, you can take a swing over to holycrapthevlogcast.com. You can also subscribe to the audio podcast, which Dalan will get to as he gets around to it. Again, Dalan, if you're listening to this part, I know it's not likely, but I'm sorry I pinged you. It was just muscle memory. I forgot. I know you're probably done with your party, but could it have killed you to bring us some cake? Seriously, whatever. I don't care. If, however, you'd like to be in touch with us, of course, you can send an email over to podcast@holycrapthevlogcast.com, and the voicemail is always open for you. 859-HCTV-554, 859-4288-554. And, of course, for those of you that are at all interested in supporting in whatever way that you'd like on a monthly basis, because I can't be arsed to upload anything to Patreon. It's not even worth it. But yes, you can go ahead and support us over there at patreon.com/HCTV. because I got lucky and I was able to get that one. Yes, go me. And thank you, Patreon, for not being complete douche nozzles and listening to people. Appreciate that. Like I mentioned early, yeah, we take support and we take thought of Christopher Hitchens. He had a great way about him, and he is a lot of inspiration to a lot of people in our podcasting circles, in the skeptical circles. You don't have to like him a lot, but I think it's probably far and away more important to respect who he was and what he did and what he accomplished. And I think one of the greatest things was he completely trounced in an open, chaired debate with Stephen Fry, the church, the Catholic Church, very especially. I will see if I can relocate that, because that debate was fantastic in so many ways. Thank you, Hitch. Thank you. Meantime, we got to get on out of here. So, of course, we'll be looking forward to seeing you guys, of course, next week. Stay safe until then. If we don't catch you at that point, of course, enjoy whatever holiday you celebrate, no matter what it is, no matter who you're with. And more importantly, as always, even if you don't think that you have family, we are gladly part of yours. It's okay to feel lonely. Don't ever for a moment think that you're alone. We'll be here for you. Meantime, safe travels, everybody. As always, I wish you the peace I no longer have. I wish you the strength that I've learned. I wish you well. Till the next time we get together, everyone. Good night, and of course, Shujin. Matane. I love you. I miss you. Dream of me. Thanks for being with us, everyone. Good night.